We're thrilled to have NFL Hall of Fame quarterback Kurt Warner join us now. Hey, Kurt, how are you?
I'm doing really well. All things considered, we're trying to do our part and trying to make the best of it with my family. And so hopefully things will get back to normal, not too far into the future. But right now we're hanging in, and we understand we're more blessed than most people.
Can you imagine being a starting quarterback in this virtual world, trying to get ready for a season when you can't throw to your receivers or talk to your coaches in person?
You know what? I was talking to somebody about that the other day. And, the ironic thing is, like, when I finally got into the league, I hardly threw it all in the offseason. That to me, the one thing that I could do to help me get ready for the season was when we did football activities, OTAs, when we could do 7-on-7, I could get out there and compete. Throwing against air to me wasn't that big of a deal. And so I believe most of these guys know how to throw the football. They're not going to forget that. They can put somebody out there if they need to. So I don't think they're missing a whole lot at this point in time. I think young guys can continue to learn the offense, can have some Zoom meetings, can grow mentally. I think when it starts to get a little more tough is when you start missing all of the football stuff. What does training camp look like? Do we miss all of the OTAs? And so you don't get a chance to get better from a football sense. This point in time in the season right now, I don't think we're too far behind if we can stay on pace and training camp plays out like it has in the past.
NFL Network analyst Kurt Warner joins us now. You can follow him at Kurt13Warner if you're a Twitter follower. Kurt, you're the perfect person to talk about Gardner Minshew, who is now the Jaguars quarterback. They have committed to him for this season. And I couldn't help but recall your situation. I'm a St. Louisian, and people in St. Louis thought they were cursed in 1999 when their high-dollar profile quarterback, Trent Green, went down with the ACL. And, well, we all know how that turned out. Set offensive records, won a Super Bowl, greatest show on turf, is now obviously a lexicon in the football world. So here's Gardner Minshew, sixth-round pick, no expectations for him last year. And the high-dollar quarterback, Nick Foles, goes down with an injury. From your experience, what is it like to be a guy who nobody, A, knows all that much about, and B, has any expectations of heading into the season?
Well, there's always a couple different ways to look at it. In my situation, it was a little different because, at the time I was 28 years old. And so I knew this was it for me. And so even though there may not have been high expectations around me, I knew I had to play well early, or that was probably my last shot to play. And so that made it a little bit different. I think a guy like Gardner, who came in last year, I don't think anybody expected anything. I think he exceeded expectations. They excited about him, as you mentioned, ready to kind of hand the keys over to the car, at least for this year, to him. But I think there's automatic pressure that comes with any team handing you the ball and saying, okay, you're our guy. You're our guy at the most important position on the football field. You're going to have to play well for us to win. It doesn't happen any other way with the way the NFL is shaped right now. And so although I don't think the expectations are extremely high that it can necessarily weigh him down, I think anytime you're a guy that nobody expects anything from and you've been given an opportunity and you want to jump into that opportunity and excel, you want to hold on to that opportunity. And so I think that's going to be the balancing act for Gardner is to understand, play within yourself, be who you are, but at the same time, I know you want to play well so you can hold on to this job and prove to the Jags, I deserve to be your franchise quarterback. So balancing that out and being able to be yourself and let the game come to you, I think is always the best advice. But it also can be the toughest thing to do because, it's tough to wait. When you get that chance, you want to go out there and set the world on fire and let everybody know, hey, this is my job to keep.
You remember the play in Denver where he's running all over the place and finds Raquel Armstead for the touchdown in the back of the end zone. That was kind of his game. How hard is it to translate that natural, improvisational skill to a structured offense? Because Jay Gruden's going to come in, I would think, and expect certain things of him.
Well, and the amazing thing is, I talked to Gardner last year. We covered the game, over in London that they played in. So I talked to him a little bit, and we talked a little bit about that. And the amazing thing was he's like, I don't really understand it because this was never really a big part of my game, growing up and going through the different ranks. So who would have ever thought that I would have been able to be this ad-lib quarterback at the highest level? So that was kind of the crazy part to me was that, he was living in that world, and he's never really lived in that world before. And so I think he's more comfortable, in a normal situation to play inside the pocket and play with more structure. I think last year he was thrown in, he was swimming a little bit, and it became survival mode. And he was able to make a whole bunch of plays that way. But I say this all the time. It is very, very hard to live in that world game in and game out. That you have to be able to make the layups. You have to be able to do the things you're supposed to do as a starting NFL quarterback. And then if you can add something extra, that extra can be making special throws down the field from inside the pocket. That extra can be buying time and ad-libbing and doing the Russell Wilson and the Aaron Rodgers outside the pocket. I don't know what that is, but that's what separates guys. Make the layups and then do something special, and that's what takes you to the next level. I think this will be good for him. I think he's used to playing in structure, used to playing in rhythm and on time, and just needs more time, or maybe the system will fit him better with Jay Gruden, in which he can play more to his strengths and allow those ad-lib plays to be a one-off here or a two-off there, that can help your team but not be what your team has to count on to be successful.
Since you did that London game, you spent time with him. He's a confident guy. He's got a huge, colorful personality. How does that serve him as he steps into that role as the number one guy?
I think, personality is always a great thing. And I think anybody that can play and be loose, that bodes well for a team. You get into big moments, and the moment's not too big, and you can bring some personality to it, and it kind of calms everybody down and, makes them realize, okay, this guy's not all stressed out. We don't need to all be stressed out. So I think, personality like that can be great. It can be great inside the locker room. It can be great in the huddle. It can be great in big moments. And I think the bottom line is it's always got to be authentic. And that's the thing about Gardner that I appreciated last year, that he was very authentic, with the clothes that he wore when he went on the road, to, the personality that he had, to the, fun-loving things that he did, and the way he embraced the media and everything. I mean, I think you fall in love with the guy and who he is, and you pull for him. And that doesn't matter if you're a fan watching from the outside or somebody in the locker room. If you've got a guy in that position that you genuinely like and enjoy, it makes it easier to rally around that guy and want to play for him.
How long does it take a young quarterback to get comfortable in the pocket? And as we talked about, he came from Mike Leach's system at Washington State, where he led the nation in passing yards. So it's not like it's something he hasn't done, but at this level, it seems to be a completely different ballgame for the quarterback.
Right. And I'm a believer that all quarterbacks are system quarterbacks, and I know a lot of people throw that, term out there and look at it as a negative. He's a system quarterback. He can only be successful in that system. Well, I believe we all have a certain skill set, and certain systems play to that skill set and allow us to be successful. So here becomes, when you're talking about Gardner Minshew, is that when he was in college, you said, Mike Leach and the air raid system. A lot of the air raid system is based off of what we call pure progression reads. In other words, you don't really have to know what the defense is doing. It's more know what your guys are doing, and you look at your guy, and if there's space there and he's open, throw it to him. And then there's other systems that are very coverage-based, where your read changes based off of what the defense does. I believe that's much more what Jay Gruden does in his offense. And so I think that's going to become the nature of how good does this go. Is that where Gardner is comfortable? Is he comfortable being able to know, hey, my number one read could be my X receiver, or it could be my Z receiver, or it could be my Y, depending on what the coverage dictates. And so now I've got to see the coverage, react to it, and get through my progressions. Or is he more of the air raid, where they need to develop more of a system that's based on pure progression, allow me to see my guy and feel the game and play the game? And so that, to me, I think is the biggest question, is who is he as a passer? What is he going to be? What plays to his strengths, both mentally and physically? And then, to me, great coaches are always guys that can cater to their quarterback best they can to play to those strengths. And so that's what I think was different about what they did last year to what he did in college. And that's a big transition for a young guy when the speed of the game picks up, and the amount of information you've got to take in, whether it's your offense or the defense's it ramps up. And there are times it just seemed like he was a little bit overwhelmed, and so he lived in that ad-lib world. And so that's going to be the real question. Year 1 to year 2, most guys make their biggest strides from year 1 to year 2. But does this system fit how Gardner Minshew sees the game? I think is going to be vital on his ability to have success early.
The other question physically is the arm strength. He is tough. He is resilient, but he doesn't have the biggest arm. You look at Kyler Murray, who's a smaller guy but has a cannon for an arm. Yeah. Do you have concerns about a quarterback who doesn't have the strongest arm in today's NFL?
Well, I mean, I think there's always a level. Like, I'm a guy that believes you have to have enough arm strength. You don't have to have a huge arm. And so the question becomes, what's enough arm strength, right? All these guys can make every throw you need to make in a perfect world when you're throwing against air. So I can see that and go, okay, that's one thing. But the real part to me about, having enough arm strength is the ability when things go wrong around you. So when you're not playing in a perfect world, do you still have the ability to make those kind of second-level special throws when you're having to fall to your left and your feet aren't set? And that, to me, is what really separates guys, that if you can't do those kinds of things, it really limits you when you're not playing in a perfect world. And watching the game as much as I know playing the game, very seldom are you playing in a perfect world in the NFL. It just doesn't happen that way. You've got to be able to make different kinds of throws when your feet aren't set. And so, like, I look at myself. I didn't have a cannon arm. I couldn't throw the ball 75 yards. But I had a unique ability to throw, a ball from 0 to 45. I could throw it at about the same velocity the entire way. And so I had the ability to use my body and make throws off balance that not a lot of guys did. And that's what allowed me to play at the level that I did. And so that's the thing I'm waiting to see with a lot of young quarterbacks. Gardner Minshew, Daniel Jones was another guy coming out of college that everybody said, does he have, the arm strength to be able to do it? And I think that's the only question I have with Gardner Minshew. He's got enough arm strength, when things are going well to make all those throws. But it's when things aren't going well, and we're going to have to see, is that a limitation that can only take him so far, or is there something there that can allow him to take his team or his game to the next level?
I would be remiss if I didn't ask you, what do you think this season is going to be like? Do you have any expectation for just how wild it could be week to week with the specter of this virus lingering?
Right. I mean, I think I'm optimistic like everybody. I'd love to see the season. But there's also a part of me that I don't see how it plays out, because I guess, the one thing that always keeps coming back into my mind is, what if one player or two players within a locker room get the virus? What is the protocol? I haven't heard any protocol yet. Up until this point, it's, well, you got to quarantine yourself for 14 days. And everybody you've been in close contact with has to quarantine themselves for 14 days. So that, to me, is the biggest question is, will that protocol change where if one guy gets sick, it's okay, we can quarantine him, and then, and then the rest of the team can play? And then what if that quarantine, what if that sickness is Tom Brady? Now, again, I understand. It could be like an injury. It could be like anything else. So, you got to deal with playing without your best player. But that, to me, is where there's such an unknown. And because the virus, seems to be, extremely, it can be passed on very, very easily, that I don't know what teams are going to do and what that protocol is going to be. But, I think I have optimism. We're 3 months away. And so hopefully a lot can be done and we can figure a lot of things out, and maybe we can figure out a way to make this work. But that's the thing to me, that it's just, I don't really know, even though I want to stay optimistic, because I think we all know, just watching the draft and watching the schedule release show, people want sports. I mean, they gravitate towards it. As we've seen at different times in our country, it helps to galvanize and bring people together in some way, shape, or form. So I hope we can get back to something. I just don't know where football, lies in where we're at with this thing, because it is so physical and guys are right on top of each other continually, what that looks like. So, we're a ways away. So I don't think there's any panic yet, and I know they're trying to push forward like it's going to happen. I just have some concerns and wonders of how it will play out, but let's hope we figure some things out globally before then, and then we can get back to sports as needed.